The Forgotten City is a truly wild adventure, from its inception all the way to rolling credits. I'm going to try to talk about it as non-spoilery as possible, but some stuff, mainly about the premise and the very beginning, will be spoiled, so be warned. To talk about the Forgotten City, I first have to go back to this little-known indie game called Skyrim. A then-modder Nick Pierce had an idea where Mr. Dragonborn themselves gets caught up in a wild time loop city, the only way to escape being to solve a number of mysteries. Pierce then spent a whole bunch of time creating the mod, The Forgotten City, and released it in 2015 to huge success. The mod was beloved, was released for both PC and the Xbone, and literally won awards. 2016 rolls around, but the idea of The Forgotten City isn't done yet, not even close. Pierce hires a couple industry veterans and the trio get to working on a full release. Over the course of 5 long and arduous years, the team worked on expanding the premise of the game. Any references to the old Scrolls 5 are replaced with real-world artifacts from ancient Rome. The Skyrim pantheon is replaced with the Roman gods, the in-world text is changed to be the runic alphabet, the time is even set sometime after a fire that burned much of real-life Rome in the year 64. The team contracted historians to make sure everything was historically accurate. Loads and loads of dialogue was written, the story was redone, the characters reworked, and every line was excellently voice acted by a stellar cast. The graphics were heavily improved, the original city was expanded upon, and various new gameplay elements were added, all to make this new experience worthy of a standalone release. And all it took was Pierce working 80-hour weeks to shield his coworkers from crunching too hard, and I truly hope he's able to sleep now. While I can't speak on how the mod starts, the full release opens with the player waking up next to a river, a kind woman having just rescued you from the rushing waters. She then asks you a series of questions, the first being your profession. There are 4 options and none of them do all that much to the gameplay. The 2 I tried were Architect, which allows you to have certain historical insights during like 2 points of the game, and Soldier, which gives you a gun. But the choice of profession only really determines your backstory. Anyway, after delving into the player's whole deal, this kind woman asks you to go find this other guy who woke up just before you. Apparently, he went off to explore some nearby ruins and hasn't returned yet. Naturally, you set off to find him and quickly stumble into the long-forgotten ruins of a Roman city. Seemingly built into the side of a mountain, moonlight casts down into the ravine, illuminating aged stone and golden statues. As you walk over crumbling bridges and through fallen houses, the glimmering statues all seem to be in a state of panic and fear. After some exploring, a woman's voice calls out, inviting you to enter a strange portal. Trapped in ruins with no other option, you walk through. On the other end is the same city, now awash in sun and flush with life. People walk around, going about their daily business. One handles the farm, another runs the inn and tavern. The buildings stand tall, the stone well kept, various golden statues still stand here or there, their expressions frozen in fear. Immediately upon arrival, this nice man Galerius introduces himself and explains the rules of this town. In that there's really only one, the Golden Rule. Everyone in town lives in harmony and peace, with the threat that if even one soul breaks this rule, everyone will meet their end. Nobody can really say exactly what the rule entails, but they all kinda landed on like, don't murder, don't steal, everyone should be okay. He also explains how there are just over a dozen inhabitants, with a few that have been missing for some time now. And right off the bat, the game's lineage as a Skyrim mod is very apparent. When talking to people, the camera switches to an angle that centers their face, and dialogue choices appear at the bottom of the screen. The rest of the time, the player is able to walk around, point their flashlight, or gun, at things, crouch, run, jump, all very much in the same way as its parent game. Searching chests, grabbing items, even the warning when stealing items is all analogous to the mechanics of Skyrim. It's pretty important to look out for that last one specifically, actually. You can look anywhere you want to, but as soon as you actually go and take an item that belongs to one of the townsfolk, you have broken the Golden Rule. Or if you shoot someone, that does it too. A warning echoes throughout the town. The many shall suffer for the sins of the one. And all the golden statues spring to life. They shoot everyone with their gilded arrows, each struck citizen turning into a new statue of gold. The player must then race back to the temple they first arrived in, traveling once again through the portal and starting the day over. And those, for the most part, are all the mechanics of the Forgotten City. You walk around, talk with folks, and restart the loop if anything goes wrong. This actually leads to the game's greatest strength: talking. The game is subdivided into a series of quests, the main to escape the loop, and a multitude of subquests ranging from getting a flower to finding a missing person. Fulfilling any of these quests is done by talking to the various inhabitants. And very early on, the devs made some great design decisions. A game filled with talking and solving puzzles based on the lines you coax out of people could wind up being very repetitive. The Forgotten City never has this problem. The first simple decision is every question you've chosen before turns gray afterwards, making it very clear where the new branches are. Another big one is truncating dialogue you've heard in a previous loop. Some characters might have long intros, or you might need to do a series of events beforehand to unlock a specific line. After these events are done once, the game almost always gives a new dialogue choice to skip over everything you've done previously. This specific mechanic is utilized to the effect where, in the late game, entire subquests are solved with a single dialogue option. It was always satisfying that first time I solved a specific puzzle, and being able to skip right by it on the next loop. Of course, none of this loop optimization would matter if the actual dialogue in the game was bad. Luckily, it's not. Every role is excellently portrayed by a cast of actors. The likable characters are likable, the scummy ones are oh so punchable. All this by the performance alone. Of course, it also helps that everyone is well written. Each of the dozen or so characters are all given their own personalities, their own likes, their own interests. Plus, everyone usually has at least something to say about everyone else in the town, which not only rounds out the characters as individuals, but really makes the city feel alive. The writing is not the only good thing during the dialogue. The story as a whole has so many amazing moments. One of my favorite things to happen in mystery-type games is when I'm able to figure something out. That big, oh wow moment when I finally put the pieces together is exhilarating. The Forgotten City is filled to the brim with these. Every time I found a secret passage, unlocked a new dialogue branch, or discovered one of the numerous secrets of the city's past, it felt truly wonderful. And that alone is enough to recommend playing this game. But nothing can be perfect, and not all the writing is as good as it could be. There's this weird narrative streak that comes up a couple times where the modern day protagonist compares the ethics of their time with the ethics of ancient Romans. The protagonist always comes in with a view of modern times are good and perfect, comparing how things back then were so much worse. And the Roman characters always have fairly good retorts, but the game itself seems to share the same viewpoint as the protagonist, making any actual criticism feel a bit hollow. Which is to say, despite me being the person in control, oftentimes I didn't like the choices I was given. And this persists in some of the most rewarding dialogue sections. There are a few moments where characters threaten you with violence, and of course, any violence will break the golden rule, restarting the loop. And since you're incentivized to not break the rule, you are always able to talk your way into a peaceful outcome. These specific moments are great. What's not so great is that many of the correct choices felt wrong to select. I knew they were the correct answers for the game, but they weren't the correct answers for me. Also, none of these segments are skippable, so if you ever find yourself in these sections again for, say, achievement reasons, you'll have to sit through it all. It's a real specific gripe, but I also think the loop is just too long. It kinda has to be in order for one to sit through all the dialogue without feeling pressed for time. But at the end, after you've done everything you can before resetting, you either have to wait quite a while for the loop to naturally reset, or you yourself have to steal something or hurt someone just to continue with the game. Finally, without spoiling anything, the game has 4 endings. While the first 3 I wound up really liking, the final one, after what is a really cool oh wow moment, just took way too long to wrap up. The premise of it really didn't make that much sense either. That's really the biggest shame of the game. It is so fun talking to everyone, solving puzzles, and finding the secrets of this forgotten city, but the devs needed to wrap up everything somehow, and they just didn't nail that aspect. And having only one major misstep makes for a really good game. It didn't stick the landing, but that's always the hardest part. The Forgotten City is still such a great experience. I had an amazing time exploring this world. It is clearly just a beefed up mod, but it executes the time loop wonderfully. Anyway, thanks for watching. This one was certainly better than 12 minutes, but is it my favorite time loop game? I guess we'll see, huh? Like and sub if you are to be so inclined. My socials are all at Mario8th, links in the doobly-doo. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.